It's our 1-year anniversary!
Yeah, time to celebrate the year that was of our first year on the road. We're gonna blow out the candle before the wind does.
So thanks for joining us, everyone, and I want to share with you our thoughts and feelings about the past year and what we've learned and what's happening and what's next. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's jump into it. How is our setup working out for us? You know, with the coach and the Mini as the Toad, and
we just want to recap for those of you if you haven't seen this before. We travel with a 36-foot motorhome, a Class A motorhome at Tiffin, and we have a tow dolly on which we mount a Mini Cooper convertible.
Yeah, and that coach is a bunkhouse, and that bunkhouse is converted into an office to be able to work full time and to be able to close it off. And so, as far as me, I think it's awesome. I wouldn't want to change it at all. What do you think?
I love our setup, and there is nothing I would want to change either. So I think the amount of research that we did before we chose which vehicle and which RV we wanted to do this journey with really paid off, because we almost ended up with something else, and we changed our mind in the last month to go with the Tiffin bunkhouse, and so far it's absolutely met all of our needs and expectations.
Absolutely. Perfect for us, maybe not perfect for everyone. There is no perfect coach for every single person, but it's been ideal for us, and hopefully you'll be able to find one that works great for you.
Mini Cooper convertible. I mean, some people thought that we were crazy to take that as a tow vehicle, but we love it.
We love it. It's so fun, and it's such a, for me as the primary driver too, it's so fun to go from driving this big lumbering bus into this little go-kart-esque convertible, and that's been really great, especially when you're on really scenic areas like driving around Tahoe or Highway 1, or near something that's just some spectacular driving.
Red Rocks of Sedona, Grand Canyon.
But it's a lightweight tow. It's easy to pull. We tow it on a tow dolly too. We could tow it floor down, but I like the dolly because it keeps it off the ground a little bit, a little safer. Also, the dolly has built-in brakes and some of the technical things, but
less wear and tear on the front tires.
Yeah, it makes less wear and tear. And like in Lake Havasu, when we had our issue, it was nice to have the tow dolly to just say, you know what, just throw that vehicle up on the tow dolly, and that way we could tow it when it was broken. So whether you have a flat or whatever the other issues, so it's nice to have that extra versatility as well.
And it hasn't been that much extra work for you really to load the Mini onto the dolly and take it off again. That was one of the things I was worried about, was how much extra work that was going to be for you.
Yeah, and I can actually, the first couple of times it was a little slow, but after I gotten some practice at it, I mean, I think I did it in 7 minutes when we timed it the other day, and that's
really quick.
That's faster than a lot of people when they're loading their 4-down vehicles. So it's not been an issue at all. So it's been great.
We're back here in Colorado, where we left 1 year ago, and this is our home state. Well, as you may know, I'm originally Australian, but it's been my home state since 2008, and been Mark's home state since, his entire life. But how do we feel about being back in our home state? Because I say home state because we really don't live here anymore. We don't own a home anymore. We sold that a year ago. But also we recently changed in January of this year to being Texan residents. Yeah. So it was interesting coming back. It's been an interesting little period of adjustment, and it's been really great to spend quality time with family and with a handful of good friends.
Right. But it's also been really interesting to observe the higher levels of stress and pressures and
that other people are under.
Just general discomfort in people's lives that we're not used to seeing when we're on the road. I mean, so many of the people that we see on the road are relaxed and present, and part of that's because a lot of them are retired, but the ones that aren't retired are people who have also broken away from the norm and are like us, whether they're young professionals working, or if they're a young family, or even just work campers or whoever, but they're in a much more relaxed and present state than we see when people are in this everyday busyness of
the rat race
of the normal life.
It probably was like that before we left as well, and I know that it was niggling at us, that because our life wasn't like that, but we worked to make sure our life wasn't like that. Mark's really great about keeping fantastic work-life balance, so you're a rarity in that, in my opinion. but everyone is where they need to be on their own journey, and it just makes me really glad that we're on this journey and not on that journey, because I used to be in that journey when I lived in Australia. When I lived in Sydney, I was very busy with the business and a workaholic, and my life was nothing like what it is now. So it's not like we've just always been like this. It was a matter of getting clear on, well, what do we want our lives to look like, how do we want it to be, and what changes do we need to make to get there and to create that. So it's been a process.
Yep. So as far as not really having a home here, it doesn't.
But we do have a home, but it's on wheels now.
Yeah, our home's on wheels. That's the kind of the point I was going to make, is that we don't have a stick and brick home here, but our home's wherever we want it to be. So that was our big lesson when we came back around the holidays and saw family, and then flew back to our coach where it was at Palm Springs at the time, and
in January,
realized that was so good to be home when we meant getting back to our coach in Palm Springs. And that's actually one of the things I love about this lifestyle, is that you are changing locations frequently, but you're always at home. It's a really interesting place to be, that you're always in your own bed, and you always have your own dishes, and you cook your own meals, and you have all the comforts of home and everything that really matters. People ask about, well, what about all of our stuff? Well, we weren't people to keep a whole lot of stuff in our stick and brick home, but in this, obviously, you have to have it less. But here we are at the 1-year anniversary, and we're thinking, well, we could probably offload a few more things. And so no real attachment to that, but those things that you really want and that are really important to you are always there. It's, when you fly off to a hotel room somewhere on a little mini vacation, when you're trying to escape from your everyday life, you just have the hotel room and what you brought in your suitcase. We have our whole home. So, and our bicycles to go bike and explore, and just everything. So do I miss having a stick and brick home? No, not at all. In fact, I don't have any interest in having one right now. How about you?
No, I'm not missing the home. We drove past it last week, and I didn't really have any reaction or feeling. I think I tend to be the kind of person anyway who's, I'm here in the now, and I'm focused on where we're going, and I don't tend to spend a lot of time looking back at the past and having regrets. A lot more people are moving to this area, and so we really have noticed the difference in the traffic in the last year, and to come back here, it just, I wouldn't want to deal with that.
No, that's one of the things we've learned, is that we've really learned that we really like the smaller towns feel. We don't like the congestion of the larger cities, and so
we definitely don't like having a commute.
Definitely don't like that. So
I
had to actually drive to an office a couple of times while I was in Colorado, and I was like, no way. I don't think I could go back to that. That's not for me.
I couldn't go back to that. No way. I think just having such a level of comfort now in how we're living, it's really liberating to drop off a lot of things. I was saying to a friend yesterday, everything that I need in my kitchen to prepare meals, I don't think there's anything that I ever prepared at home that I have not been able to prepare in the RV. You just get very clear about what you need and what is multi-purpose, and if I'm not using it really regularly, then it's really not worth having it at all. Pretty much everything has to be used on a weekly basis almost, I would say, in order to justify keeping it.
I think that's a fun point that you make too about the kitchen, is that some people think that these tiny kitchens in an RV would be very limiting, but not at all. I mean, you get used to it, and I've actually talked to a few people who full-time that they prefer it to the big kitchens that they had in their old houses, because they know where everything is, and they only have things that they know they'll use, and so it's so much more efficient and quick and easy, and it's good. But we haven't found that limiting at all.
Nope.
So no, it's good. Our finances, in hindsight, looking back over a year, we've been able to see that we basically spend about what we used to spend in the townhome.
Because you can pretty much live like this for as cheaply or as expensively as you desire, and it really depends on your financial resources, your income, your tastes, your style, your preferences. There are so many variables that you can't really just say, well, it costs this amount of money to live, but to help you understand, and because that is one of the questions that we had before we hit the road. It was a big question we had. So we
asked a lot of questions about that.
And I think the best way to answer this, in the past, 2/3 of our expenses were fixed. So the mortgage, our HOA, insurances, payments on the cars, that kind of thing. And 1/3 of it was variable. So things like gas and eating out and groceries. We sold our townhome, and so we no longer have a mortgage. We no longer have an HOA, but we have a mortgage on the coach. It's not a big mortgage. It's substantially smaller than our townhome was. So we now have 1/3 fixed costs and 2/3 variable. And of course, again, those variable costs are gas. How far do we travel? How fast do we travel? How frequently do we travel? How much do we drive the Mini around exploring? What do we do for fun and adventure and entertainment? How often are we eating out?
The big picture on finances, and to kind of sum up what Jules is saying here, is that we spend about the same every month as we used to. It's just that we have a lot more flexibility and control over how we do that. And you could spend as much or as little as you want. You've seen people who live very extravagantly on this, and they stay in very expensive parks, and they drive very expensive RVs, and then we see people who drive extremely inexpensive RVs or even tents, and then move very little into a smaller geographic area, and they would be living on a fraction. They would be paying so little. And so yes, you can live this lifestyle for very little or very large amount of money. So it just totally depends on your own preferences.
But our goal with this lifestyle was never to live on the cheap. It was never to do everything we possibly could. It was to just live a really great life on a day-to-day basis. And to live a life that's rich and joyful and peaceful and fun and adventurous and always interesting.
Yeah, and it certainly has been all of that.
It's never been boring.
No.
What does it cost in gas? Now remember, we don't have a commute. We both work from the coach, so when we're parked in a campground, we're not spending anything. We spend money to get from one destination to another in the coach, and even though the gas mileage is not great, and for those of you who are curious, it's around about 7.5 miles per gallon. That's fully loaded and towing the Mini. So while it's not great gas mileage for a vehicle, it's excellent gas mileage for a house. But the way we like to look at our gas mileage is by combining the coach and the Mini, because really that is the true picture. We will drive maybe a couple of hours and park the RV for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we do all of our exploring in the Mini, which is much more fuel efficient, getting about 30 miles per gallon. So we look at how many miles we do in the coach per year, how many we do in the Mini, and it works out around about the same. And then we average it out, and it comes to around about 19 miles per gallon overall is our fuel consumption to live this lifestyle. So I think that's a figure that can help you. Of course, that's going to vary depending on your setup, depending if you have a truck and trailer, or if you've got a big coach, or if you've got a diesel, or we've got a gas. So again, all of those variables should give you a little bit of an idea as a starting point. And of course, we were super happy that the gas prices have been so much lower the last 6 months or so from when we took off. And we pretty much go out exploring every weekend. When you average it out, it was about $330 for the first 3-4 months of this year. Was about that. But in looking back over the last year, I was seeing a pattern of between $200 and $500 a month.
We spend $300 a month, but I know so many people, friends, family, and who spend far more in fuel every month than we do, when our lifestyle is perceived as being a heavy fuel use lifestyle, but it's really not. It's again variable. It depends on how you do it.
I think that's an interesting little surprise for a lot of people who think that this is costing us a fortune in gas. It doesn't. Not for us.
No.
Not how we travel, but we tend to stay 2 to 3 weeks in a location before moving on again. So that makes a big difference.
It does. Another fun little thing about gas, like we also don't use a lot of gas to heat our home either, you know. So
Right.
a lot of these people with the big homes, you know, they have huge heating and cooling bills, and we don't have that.
We don't have any utility bills anymore.
No, we have no utility bills. And when we are heating or cooling our home, it's a 300 square foot space, not a...
And it's hooked up at a campground that we're not paying anything for because we've already paid for our camping membership. So the only other thing would be propane. I think initially I'd budgeted we might spend $25 or $30 a month on propane when we started this, but we haven't at all. I think we've filled the propane tank twice. Maybe we've spent about $100 in propane in the course of a year now. In terms of campground costs, again, that was something when we were doing a budget for this, I think I was allocating a few $100s a month for. We did start out with a 1,000 Trails Zone Pass, which allowed us to stay up to 2 weeks at a time in a campground for around about $3 per night. And if you've seen our previous video or been onto our blog and seen our articles about that, we did change that to upgrade to an elite membership with 1,000 Trails, which is an upgraded membership, which is really hard to find information on. I'm not going to go into it here and now, but if you are interested in a camping membership that can save you a lot of money when you're traveling, go and check out the blog post on our website at RVLove.com. There are two, one for a zone pass and one for the upgrade, and it will save you not only a lot of time but a lot of money, so it should help you out a lot. But we, in January, February of this year, we didn't spend anything on campground fees. We camped completely free of charge because we were staying at 1,000 Trails campgrounds. But then in March, April and May, we left the 1,000 Trails system because most of their campgrounds are located on the coast, around the coasts. So they're really not in the middle of the country, except for, you know, a couple in Arizona, one in Arizona, some in Texas. But so on average for the last, say, March, April, May, we've spent about $1,000 a month in campground fees. Now that is
a big difference from free.
It is big difference, and my disclaimer on that is it is quite a bit higher because we've stayed here for 2.5 months in Colorado to be close to family, to help them out, and one of those we went up to Estes Park and we did stay at a campground that was substantially more expensive, probably double the cost of what we would normally stay at, but we stayed there for 2 weeks, so that we treated as a vacation. So it was about $900 for 2 weeks to stay in that one campground alone. That was a bit of an exception, but generally speaking, you know, our campground fees would be, you know, anywhere from $0 to $200 or $300 a month, because occasionally we will go and stay a week somewhere else that isn't in the 1,000 Trails network.
Another thing we thought people might be interested in is how technology's worked out for us on the road, and because that was a big concern. That was my primary concern, actually, because I still have like a 9-to-5 job where I'm expected to be online all day to be available, and so that's been impactful for our travels in that we will choose where we're going to go based on cell coverage and connectivity, whereas if you were complete self-employed and you had the total even more freedom than us, then retired and don't need that, then you'd have a little, even perhaps a little more flexibility in that arena. But because we make that a bit of a priority, I have had next to no issue with that at all. I had a couple, like 2 or 3 days out of a whole year where it's been an issue, and
you had to work from a cafe.
I had to work from a cafe. It was interestingly because, you know, my supervisor recently reached out and was commenting after a year that he's been amazed at how connected and available I have been, and further pointed out, you know, being a virtual company, we're on conference calls every week and, you know, every day almost, but every time, without fail, there's at least one person every week who's having connectivity issues, and it's never been me. So it's totally doable. You know, 5 years ago maybe not as much, but with today's technology it's very doable.
We've planned and made that a priority, and so we changed from AT&T to Verizon, which has the best national coverage across the board. Other changes that we've made is when we're planning our itinerary, we always check the Verizon coverage map online to see what the coverage is like in that area. We need 4G LTE to have enough coverage to work properly. And if there's any area that's borderline or unsure, we just won't go there. We'll stay somewhere else. Even if it looks like on the coverage map that it's a good location, I'll still always call ahead to the campground or to the ranger station and get their opinions on it, just to give us that extra peace of mind. So that has been definitely a big win, technology-wise.
For sure.
So for pretty much the same money as we were spending a year ago in our previous stick and brick lifestyle, we're living a much bigger life. It's bigger in terms of experience, bigger in terms of joy and fun and personal growth and all kinds of expansion, and we're just really living and loving our life now. It's not that we didn't love our life before, but we definitely love this one so much more. And having come back here now and come full circle, appreciating even more now what our new life is, and the thought of coming back and living how we used to live again would be tough. I think that's not something that is appealing at all.
Not appealing to me.
Me neither. So what would be our advice to any of you out there that are thinking about living this kind of lifestyle? Well, any kind of change is going to bring with it some sort of fear or concern or worries. Can I do this? And that's just part of life. That's with whether you're changing a job, whether you're changing a relationship, whether you're moving to another city or another country, or moving into an RV. They're just fears that are normal and natural to work through, and the best way to work through that, I find, is to just do research and to learn more about it and to reduce the unknowns as much as possible. So like what you're doing now, you're watching this video and no doubt many others. That's what we did too. We watched a lot of videos, we read a lot of blog posts, we researched the heck out of this lifestyle before we headed off. And yes, we were still nervous when we took off on that first day.
Bit. I think you more than
I was
me.
more nervous.
I was pretty comfortable. I mean, day one, I'm like, yep, this is good.
Let's go. And I'm like, are we doing the right thing? But I deep down, I did know that that we were, or if it turned out we weren't, then we would just stop. I mean,
ask the questions of yourself, just because I'm sure you're watching ours and other people's blogs, and as Julie mentioned, but what's perfect for us isn't perfect for everybody. But if you do the research and ask yourself the real questions on what you really would like and what's important to you, then you'll find the exact right thing for you. And but again, make the decision, jump in, because there's a wonderful world out there waiting for you. So. And why wait? Why put it off? It's fantastic.
There are no guarantees in life.
Yeah.
We've been on the road for a year. How much longer are we going to do this? I don't think we could exactly give you a date. We don't have a date. We don't need to make a date, but it's definitely going to be a lot longer. We feel like we've barely scratched the surface with what we've seen already on the West Coast, but there's still so much more yet to see. So, we might do this for another 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Honestly, we really don't know, but we're just going to keep going, and we'll know when it's time to stop.
Yep.
If it ever is. We just don't know.
And the definition of stop is obviously negotiable, so we'll know when it's time to stop this style, whether it's traveling in a smaller coach overseas, or who knows what the next step is, but we know that we love this for now, and that we're planning on continuing to do it for quite some time. We're going to be here for just another week or two, and then we're going to head up to South Dakota and check out some of the Rapid City area, and then come across the top there and hit a couple of the states on our way to Maine. And we're planning on spending a large amount of time up in Maine.
About 6 weeks.
Yeah, and then through the fall we'll work our way down the coast and end up in Florida sometime for this winter. So that's kind of where we're at after a year.
Yeah.
So.
Feeling pretty good.
Feeling really good.
Yeah, it has gone really fast, so it'll be interesting to see what the next year or 2 or 3 or more holds for us. So.
Hopefully that answers your questions. Feel free to reach out to us, send us an email, connect with us online, and ask us your other questions, because it's always great to hear what other people are interested in to help us write the content that you want to hear.
And don't forget to jump over to the blog at RVLove.com. There's a lot of great information on there, and we've just shared a lot of examples and learnings from our journey. I hope you find that really helpful.
Yeah.
We're going to finish up now. with cake. It's been staring at us all this time, and it's time to eat the chocolate cake. So, that's good.
Sorry we don't have taste division.
Sorry we didn't have enough for all of you. See you next time.
Bye-bye.